Hey guys, That Mom here. So I have mentioned a lot in my previous videos that there would be more information about breastfeeding in the future. And well, the future is here. I would like to share with you some information on breastfeeding. It's a lot of information, so I'm going to split it into a couple of different videos. This is video 1, and what I want to share with you in this video is why I chose to breastfeed and some of the helpful information that I gained in taking a breastfeeding course and why I think all mommies to be should take a breastfeeding course. So if you've watched my other videos, you know that I pride myself on being that mom. And for me, that means being a mom that researches the hell out of everything, follows every recommendation, and like many of you moms watching, a mom that stops at nothing to provide the very best for her children. Well, I have to admit, while I pride myself on being that mom now, I was not always like this. When I thought about having kids, I thought about exactly that, having kids. I worked with kids, I loved kids, kids were fun, and I wanted to have kids, not babies. Babies scared the hell out of me. To me, they seemed so tiny and breakable, and I was just really inexperienced when it came to anything having to do with babies. So during my pregnancy, I was not that mom, I was the holy shit, I'm gonna be a mom. And I was freaking out about everything. Well, my way of handling things when I'm freaking out is to kind of ignore it. So I really didn't think a whole lot about this little tiny human growing inside of me when it came to like all the responsible things. I really chose to think about the fun things like buying baby clothes and setting up the nursery, which for us took an exorbitant amount of time, and fun stuff like that. It probably wasn't until way later in my pregnancy, I think I was like 8 months pregnant, when I was like, I should probably start doing some responsible things. And so I was going to sign up for a birthing class. While signing up for this birthing class, I saw that the hospital offered some other classes too, one of which was a breastfeeding class. And this was probably the first time at 8 months pregnant that I stopped and was like, am I going to breastfeed? I mean, I know that breastfeeding is supposed to be beautiful and the most natural thing in the world, but for me, it did not seem that way. For me, it just seemed weird and it sounded really painful and it sounded really unnatural. I honestly could not picture myself breastfeeding. But I figured if the hospital offered a class, it was probably a good idea for me to take it so that I could make an educated decision. And so that's what I did. So I signed up for the class and I was so nervous. And I go there and right away, the instructor has oil burning in a diffuser. She has relaxing, soothing spa music playing. It had a super hippie vibe and I was like, oh my God, this is not going to be for me. I was just mortified and I was like, I really hope she does not make us all whip our tits out because I don't want to see all these women's boobs. And I took my seat, totally nervous, just trying to hide all the fear that I had in my face. And the instructor gets up and she teaches the whole class in this really soothing voice. And she starts off by saying how she would like to congratulate us on making the smart choice to provide the very best for our children. And I instantly feel guilty because I'm like, I have made no such decision. I am here just to get information, but I like smile appreciatively and I'm like, okay, stay open-minded. She's gonna have good information. So she starts right off the bat with just talking about all the benefits of the breastfeeding and why it is such a smart choice apparently. And so she starts with the benefits to the mom, which to be honest, going into this class, I really didn't know that there were any benefits for the mom. But it started off a little weak for me. She starts off with how breastfeeding is super convenient. She's like, because you don't have to worry about packing bottles or formula or water, so no matter where you go, breastfeeding is really convenient. And I was like, really? I mean, yeah, you have a point. I always have my boobs with me, true, but having a baby attached to them does not at all sound convenient. So she didn't really sell me on the convenience factor. The next point she made kind of had me going. She talked about it being economical, which when we moved to Dallas, I kept my job in Las Vegas and was traveling back and forth, but obviously at the end of my pregnancy, I couldn't do that anymore. So we were just adjusting from being a dual income household to a single earner household. So I was like, okay, the thought of saving money sounds great. Little did I know this was not going to apply to me. You'll hear more about it later. Then she started talking about how breastfeeding can help mothers recover faster after delivery and can help our uteruses go back to their regular size faster, and I just didn't even want to think about any of that. At this point, I know I was 8 months pregnant, but I was still trying to think of a way for the baby to teleport out. The idea of delivery and recovery just did not sound appealing to me, so I did not even let that sink in. But she had a really good point with the next one where she talked about how breastfeeding can help moms lose weight. Now, I'll be honest, I do not, nor have I ever had a perfect body, so I wasn't like super stoked to get bikini ready or anything like that. But the thought of being able to burn 300 to 500 extra calories a day really did sound appealing. So she was slowly winning me over with some of the benefits to the mom, but I'm not gonna lie, it really still wasn't enough to convince me that breastfeeding was going to be right for me. It probably wasn't until she started to get into the benefits that breastfeeding has for the baby that I started to go, I might just have to do this. So she starts talking about how breastfeeding is easily digested for babies. And this is really important that the breast milk is so easily digested, because babies can have a lot of like tummy problems, and you'll hear people say that their baby's gassy. So the fact that breast milk is so easily digested is really beneficial for the baby. Breast milk is also packed with nutrients and antibodies, which is awesome. But one of the things that she talked about that I honestly found the most interesting was that breast milk was perfectly formulated for your baby. And I really liked this idea. I mean, if you think about it, your baby just spent 9 months growing inside of you. I guess it would make the most sense that the best perfectly formulated nutrients would then come from you. But I just loved the idea of being able to give my baby something that was perfectly matched for her. I mean, formula cannot do that. Formula cannot be perfectly matched to your baby. So she really kind of had me going with that one. I was like, you know, it's kind of cool to think that I could give my baby something that was designed perfectly for her. So she kept going on about, you know, the other benefits for the baby. So things like there's a lower risk of SIDS, and that was huge for me. I was terrified of SIDS, so I loved that breastfeeding was had a lower risk of SIDS associated with it. Breastfed babies have fewer respiratory infections and less diarrhea, which is also really great because that's a really common cause of infant death. So I liked that. I liked that breastfed babies had fewer allergies and had a lower risk of asthma and a lower risk of dental problems. Thought that was cool. I thought that it was pretty cool that breastfeeding babies, breastfeeding helps promote appropriate jaw, teeth, speech, and facial structure development. So that was super cool. It lowers the risk of your child having chronic disease in the future. So things like type 1 diabetes, celiac disease, Crohn's disease, and even some childhood cancers. I mean, all of these things just sounded really important. And that was just breastfeeding as a whole. When she started talking about the colostrum, which is the first milk that you get, I mean, that had a whole nother set of benefits attached to it. I mean, they call it liquid gold, for God's sakes. So apparently the colostrum is like amazing. It works as a laxative to help clear out the baby's intestines, which is really important because in those first few days they're passing the meconium. It helps loosen up mucus. It helps coat the stomach and the intestines, which will like protect it from invading antibodies or something like, or from invading organisms. That's what she said. So I was like, wow, this is really, really amazing. I mean, I get it that there are no guarantees in life, and I'm sure that there are breastfed babies that have gone on to have diabetes, and I'm sure that something, knock on wood, could happen to Q tomorrow. But it sounded like by breastfeeding, I was going to be giving my baby a leading edge on helping her have a healthier lifestyle, and I really liked that idea. So she was really selling me on all the benefits that it has for the baby. And I mean, I really only named a few. There are so many more benefits for your baby to breastfeeding. So after she got done talking about the physical and like health benefits of breastfeeding, she got to talking about the emotional ones, which I kind of didn't think would really touch home with me, but it did. She talked about how obviously breastfeeding is a really great bonding experience, but specifically she spoke about doing skin to skin, which when I was pregnant, I really struggled with not feeling very maternal. I was not one of these moms who was very in tune with her baby in utero. Everything about delivery freaked me out. I thought that the baby came out covered in alien goop. I didn't want anything to do with it. So when she started talking about skin to skin, I thought for sure this was not going to be for me. Skin to skin is basically those first, it's first hour to 2 hours immediately after your child is born, when they take your baby out and they put it on your chest and you and your baby are skin to skin. Now, I'm not going to get into all of the benefits that skin to skin has. There are a lot, and I'd love to do a separate video where I get into all of that and share with you our experience with skin to skin, because it was a bit different. So I'm not going to get into it now, but surprisingly, even though I thought that the baby coming out and everything was so gross, the whole idea of skin to skin sold me. I loved all the benefits. I loved that it supported that first feeding, and it supported you being able to breastfeed successfully. I loved the idea that in that time of doing skin to skin, how the baby just naturally would kind of crawl up and nurse. I mean, it just goes to show how innate it is for our babies to nurse on us. And I just thought the whole thing was really, really cool. So while I went into the class thinking there is no way this is going to be for me, just by the end of her intro, where she was talking about all the benefits, the physical, health, and emotional benefits, I was sold. I knew that I was going to breastfeed. No matter how weird and unnatural it sounded, the benefits were just too great. And not only that, I really loved the idea of embracing this once in a lifetime opportunity to do something with my child. I will never, ever again get those first moments of her life with her. I will never again be able to nurse her the way that I will in those first few months and give her all of those benefits. And so I just knew that it didn't really matter what I thought about it, I was going to breastfeed. Now, I just wanted to take pause here for a minute. I know that there are moms out there who tried hard to breastfeed and were not able to. And I want you to know that my goal is not to try and make you feel bad. I'm not trying to make worse the mommy guilt that you carry. I know how hard that decision can be to no longer fight to breastfeed your child. I was almost in your shoes, so I know how hard that is. My goal is not make you feel bad in sharing this. My goal in sharing this is to reach out to that mom who's maybe uneducated and on the fence about breastfeeding like I was, and share with her the benefits, or maybe reach out to that mom who's just planning on skipping breastfeeding altogether, and reach out to those moms and say the benefits, not only to you, but also to your child, of breastfeeding are far too great to just skip breastfeeding altogether. at least try to give your baby the very, very best. Even if you only nurse in those first few days and give your baby the colostrum, you are helping it so, so much. So those are the moms that I want to reach out to. And you moms who tried and weren't able to, I feel your pain, I really do. And you're a great mommy for at least trying, and I really, really hope that sharing all this with you does not make you feel worse. So we can get back to the class now. So obviously, like I said, at this point, I have decided I was going to do it. I'm not gonna lie, I was not in love with the idea. It still sounded really scary and really painful, but for me, what I pictured when I pictured being a mom, I pictured knowing that I was going to have to make sacrifices. I was going to have to do things that I necessarily didn't want to do in order to give my child the very, very best. And for me, breastfeeding was one of those things. It did not sound fun. It did not sound natural. It did not sound beautiful. It sounded very, very painful, very, very weird, but I was going to do it anyways. So the class continues, and I pretty much have a grimace on my face throughout the entire thing. You know, they start talking about the anatomy and physiology of the breast and the hormones we secrete and what letdown is and what it feels like, and they talk about different nipple types and what you would need to do if you have this kind of nipple versus this kind of nipple. Although I will say I was really happy they did not make us whip our tits out, so that was really good. But they go on to talk about how to latch your baby and I mean everything. While at the time it was really freaking me out, it was really, really helpful. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of that here because the intention of this video was not to replace a breastfeeding class. So if you have questions about any of these things and you want more information, you can comment down below and I'll try to answer them if I can. But I strongly advocate that you take one of these breastfeeding courses because they truly do give you a ton of information. So, like I said, I'm not really going to get into it, but they talked about everything. They talked about positions. They talked about even just how you should prepare yourself mentally for going into a nursing session. I mean, it was really helpful. Now, a few things that I did learn in the class that I would like to share with you was that I learned a lot about my hospital. So I really advocate trying to take one of these classes at the hospital that you are delivering at because odds are they're going to help educate you on your hospital. I learned that my hospital is one of what I think they said 65. It was one of 65 certified baby-friendly hospitals. I know that sounds weird, like aren't all hospitals baby-friendly? What does that even mean? But what it means for a hospital to be certified baby-friendly is that it offers the best when it comes to baby feeding and promoting mother-baby like bonding, I guess you could say. So basically what it means is that the hospital is all about promoting breastfeeding and the best for in baby feeding and for promoting a strong attachment and bond between mother and baby. So they're going to promote things like rooming in. They're going to let you stay with your baby as much as you want. And I really loved that. I loved finding out just how pro breastfeeding and pro mommy baby bonding time my hospital was. Like I said, they were only one of like 65 who are actually certified baby friendly. That doesn't mean that your hospital isn't going to probably have some of those same principles that a baby friendly hospital has. It's just that, you know, some hospitals, the one that I delivered at happened to be one of them, actually went through the certification process and meet all of the standards. So I thought that was pretty cool. Part of them being such a baby-friendly hospital meant that they had a huge lactation consulting staff. This was the most important thing. So I'm going to talk about this a bit. My hospital, thankfully, had a huge staff. So the lactation consultants were readily available. I am going to say that all of you, if you plan on trying to breastfeed at all, should ask your doctor. Maybe your doctor can give you the information. If not, call the hospital and ask, you know, their information desk about their lactation consultants. Do they have any on staff? How many do they have on staff? How readily available are they for you? Because the lactation consultants were really the key to being successful for me. I would not be able to be breastfeeding cute if it were not for the lactation consultants. you know, they gave a pretty interesting statistic when I was in the class. I can't remember exactly, but it was something along the lines of like 96% of moms were going to initiate breastfeeding after birth, but something like 84% of them were going to give up in the first 4 weeks. And this was really astounding. And they continued on to say that, honestly, while a lot of moms think that they can't breastfeed, truth is that very, very, very few women are actually unable to breastfeed. Most of the times when moms are unsuccessful with breastfeeding is because they did not have enough education and support. And that's why I'm going to tell you, these lactation consultants are going to be your lifesaver. So call your hospital, inquire on the lactation consultants, like I said, how many there are, how available they are to you, but also how available they are for postpartum care. I had, I think it was either 3 or 4 appointments after I went home with Q, where I went back to the hospital and had follow-up appointments to help us be successful. So this is probably going to be one of the most important things that you can hopefully learn about in your breastfeeding class, but if not, at least call and get that information. Another thing that I also loved about the class, I mean, while at the time it mortified me, once I was actually living it ended up being really helpful. They gave us honest information about the struggles of breastfeeding. Like I said, they told us that most moms are going to give up in the first 2 weeks. They told us it could be painful. They told us you could have cracked nipples, clogged milk ducts, get mastitis, get engorged. I mean, they explained it all to us, and my whole face the whole time was like, I couldn't believe that I had just signed up to do this. But I loved that they gave me this information, because when I ended up having struggles and I was going through it, I knew that it was normal. I knew that a lot of women went through this, and I knew that if I just sought out help, that these problems didn't mean I couldn't breastfeed. It just meant that I was having some struggles and I needed some extra help on how to overcome them. So I loved that they gave me that information. It really, really helped me be prepared. One of the things that I think was the most important bit of information that any mom, whether you choose to breastfeed or not, the information that they gave me to take home was feeding recommendations. Like I said, this is really important for all moms to know. They told me how the current AAP, American Academy of Pediatrics, recommendation is exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months. So what this means is nothing but breast milk for 6 months. I will say that there is new research out there that is supporting the starting of solids earlier, like around 4 months, but I won't get into that here. The current, though, AAP recommendation is exclusive, nothing but breast milk for the first 6 months. Then, at 6 months, you'll start your baby on some solids, but the AAP recommends continuing to breastfeed until a year of age. So it was really great for me to know how long of a commitment is this, and you know, so I was able to take that home and know what I was committing to give my daughter the very best. But then they outlined how frequently my baby should be eating. And this was so important because definitely going into the class, I was misinformed. I've talked about in my other videos how frequently moms are misinformed. And this was a perfect example of how I was misinformed before taking a class. So when your baby is born, your baby is going to lose weight. All babies do. They lose weight. So odds are when your baby discharges from the hospital after being born, they are going to weigh less than they actually did when they were born. The goal is in those first 2 weeks after your baby is born, they should get back up to birth weight. Until that happens, your baby should go no longer than 3 hours without breastfeeding. So that whole thing that people would tell you, don't wake a sleeping baby, they're lying to you. They don't know what they're talking about. Your baby, until they've gotten back to birth weight, should not go 3 hours without feeding. So that was really important. I really did not know that. But even after they're back to birth weight, they really should go much longer. So what happens is after your baby's back at birth weight, like I said, that should happen about 2 weeks-ish. Your baby can then start to have a 4-hour stretch at night. It's pretty much going to stay that way, where they have 1 4-hour stretch between feedings at night until they are about 3 months old. So what's interesting is I remember when I was pregnant, one of my friends had posted this picture and was like, baby's 10 weeks today, and to celebrate, she slept for 10 hours. And I was like, sweet. And I can do anything for 10 weeks. At 10 weeks, my baby will be sleeping for 10 hours. Awesome. Well, so needless to say, I was kind of devastated to find out in this class that that's actually really, really, really unhealthy. Until your baby is about 3 months old, they should not be doing longer than a 4. Potentially, you would want to talk about this with your pediatrician, a 5-hour stretch at night. That is technically sleeping through the night for babies of that age, believe it or not. So, don't fall victim to those books that say, have your baby sleeping 12 hours by 12 weeks. That's dangerous. I know moms out there do it. Like I said, I have a friend, her baby actually just turned 1 year old, perfectly healthy, and she had her baby sleeping 10 hours at 10 weeks old. But you know me, I'm that mom. I don't want to take the risk. It is unhealthy for some babies. Some babies have failure to thrive and will not wake themselves when they are hungry. So don't try and push your baby to sleep longer than what's recommended. After your baby has reached birth weight, check with your pediatrician, but they should really only be going at max a 4 to 5 hour stretch at night between feedings. During the day, you're going to be feeding on demand. You're going to be looking for those hunger cues. So things like your baby bringing their hands up to their mouth or their arms up to their mouth, moving their head side to side, rooting, fidgeting at night can be a sign that they're starting to get hungry. You're going to want to follow these cues before they get really upset. Crying is a late hunger cue. If your baby is crying, you missed the early signs, and it can actually make things like latching and feeding just more difficult. So look for those early cues until your baby's 3 months old. Feed on demand during the day. Allow a 4 to max 5 hour stretch based on what your pediatrician says. Then after your baby gets to be around the 3 to 4 month old age, your baby will be sleeping 5 to 6 hours at night between feedings. This is considered sleeping through the night. So when someone says, oh, is your baby sleeping through the night? You need to think about it in baby terms. Yes, my 4-month-old sleeps 5.5 hours at night. That's sleeping through the night. Don't think of it in adult terms where, you know, getting the 7 to 9 hours of sleep. That ain't gonna happen for a while. So around, you know, the 4 months of age, your baby sleeping 5 or 6 hours at night is totally appropriate. This was really important to know. Like I said, I get it. I totally get it. You're desperate for sleep. I see it all the time. Like I said, I had a friend who used the book, have your baby sleep 12 hours by 12 weeks, because you're desperate for a routine. You're desperate for sleep. Some moms have to return back to work around this time, and they're like, my baby's gotta sleep because I've got to get up in the morning. So I get it. But if you really think about it, these early baby years are so small in the grand scheme of their life. And while it's difficult and challenging, hello, I have a baby. I'm not just saying this. I know what it's like. It's totally worth it to follow the recommendations, because while some people's baby do just fine and maybe yours will, do you really want to take the risk that your baby won't? So once your baby gets to be about 6-7 months, they will be getting, and safe for them to go the 7 to maybe 9 hours between feedings at night. And that's kind of when we'll start to feel a little bit more human, us adults, because they're going that adult period of time stretch at night. So that's kind of where Q is right now. She will go about 7 hours between feedings at night. So what this looks like for us is she has a bedtime between 7 or 8 o'clock. She wakes up around 1 or 2, a lot of times for her feeding, and she goes back to sleep and sleeps until 7. And that's what it looks like. It will probably continue to look this way until she's about 10 months to about a year. At that point, some babies drop that single feeding that they're having at night. If your baby isn't following those recommendations, is either eating less, I would be concerned, and I would definitely make sure that it's okay with your pediatrician if you're not following these recommendations. But if your baby is feeding more than these outlines and you're maybe interested in doing some night weaning, if you have a 7-month-old who is still waking up 4 times to feed at night and you want to do some night weaning, talk to your pediatrician. Don't just do it because this video told you that these were the outlines. Talk to your pediatrician. Make sure that your baby is healthy and at a good way to support some sort of night weaning. But for me, I loved getting this information, because otherwise I would have been one of these moms who was doing something that I didn't realize could be potentially dangerous to my baby. Another really helpful thing that the class taught me about was soiled diaper minimums. Now, you wouldn't think that this is all that important, but particularly in that first like week or two, when you're wanting your baby to get back to birth weight, the only way to really know whether or not your baby is getting enough to eat is by seeing how much is coming out the other end. So they were able to educate me on how many wet diapers there should be for the first 2 weeks and how many poopy diapers there should be for the first 2 weeks. So it was really helpful. I'm not going to sit here and go through all the guidelines for you. You can look up, there are charts online. If you just look up soiled diaper chart, you can look at the charts just to kind of give you an idea. The wet diapers pretty much follow their age. So at 2 days old, they'll have 2 wet diapers. At 3 days, they'll have 3 wet diapers. At 4 days, and so on and so forth until a week. And then it pretty much stays at that 6, 7 wet diapers, and I believe it's 3 soiled diapers if I'm remembering correctly. So either way, they were able to provide me with that information, which was very, very helpful and really important. Another thing that they provided us with was a chart. And I used the paper chart for probably the first 2 to 3 weeks. But basically, this chart helped you log the date. So you would put the date at the top, and it logged the time of all feedings. So let's say it's 11:52 p.m. I would log 11:52 p.m. nurse on the left side, then on the right side. I could even log how long she nursed on each side to make sure she was nursing long enough. It also had a spot for me to be able to log the diapers, so the wet diapers versus the poopy diapers. This was obviously important because, like I said, I was able to make sure that she was getting enough when she nursed. So I loved the chart. I lived and breathed by the chart. What I loved so much about the chart was that it really helped me make sure that I was following those feeding guidelines. You know, I could look at the chart and say, okay, she ate at 11:52. That means if she is not up, because it's 11:52 p.m., I'm probably going to bed. If she is not up by 2:52, I'm waking her. So I could set an alarm to make sure that she was getting up at the time she should be getting up to nurse within those feeding recommendations. My doctor told me long ago that I could stop logging things. I will admit, I still log them. Like I said, after the first, I want to say 2 weeks, I switched over to an app that I absolutely love. I use this app to log every time she sleeps, for how long she sleeps, which for me at this point is really helpful because I'm able to see whether or not she's getting enough sleep in a 24-hour period. If not, I know that I need to work harder at getting good naps in or putting her to bed earlier or what have you. So I love the app for that. I log all of her soiled diapers, which isn't that important at this point with Q being the age that she is, but I also log every time she eats. I love logging every time she eats because I'm able to look at her log and see if, you know, she hasn't been eating really well today. Maybe that's why she's crabby. But ultimately, the biggest reason why I love logging everything is because it really helps me eliminate reasons why she might be crabby. For the most part, Q's a pretty happy baby. So when she cries, I know it's because she needs something. And trying to do everything off of memory is impossible for me. It is true. They say you become stupider after having a baby. She sucked all my brain cells out of me. So I can't do anything on memory. So if she starts to get fussy, I'll be like, I wonder what she needs. And I'll whip out my phone. I'll look at my app and I'll be like, oh, it's been 3 hours since she ate. She's probably hungry. So it's really helpful for that. So I recommend continuing to log, but definitely in those first 2 weeks, you're going to want to log things to make sure that you're meeting all those recommendations for the diapers and for the feedings and for everything. So I realized that this was a lot of information, but I hope that you found it helpful. Like I said earlier, my hope with sharing with you my reasons for breastfeeding is that I'm hoping that I can help encourage moms who may be on the fence or who are thinking that they don't want to do it at all to actually give it a try. I have no problem saying it. I think that all moms should breastfeed. I worked really, really hard to breastfeed, so I'm a huge advocate for it, and I'm hoping by sharing with you some of its benefits that ultimately helped encourage me to do it, I can do the same for you. I also hope that the information about the breastfeeding class was helpful. Hopefully it encourages you to go out and take one. I really, really think that all mommies should take a breastfeeding class. It comes with a lot of information, and as you see, not just information that's directly related to breastfeeding. They taught me a lot about my hospital that I was delivering in by telling me how it was baby friendly. They taught me about the staff, so I knew how many lactation consultants there were and the type of care that they give and the services that they provide. They taught me about feeding recommendations, which ultimately helped me with sleep recommendations. So the class was in many ways all encompassing. So take a breastfeeding class, mommies to be. Even if you choose not to breastfeed, it's going to give you a lot of valuable information. Like I said, I know that this was a lot of information. I still left out a lot. There is a lot more information. So if you have any questions, please comment below. I pretty much pulled all the information from the books that the hospital gave me. I, of course, because I'm that mom, checked them all with the American Academy of Pediatrics and UNICEF and the World Health Organization to make sure that I was providing you with accurate information. But I am no expert. Go out and take a class, reach out to your hospital and get information that is specific to you and your situation and your baby and your needs. I obviously loved my class because I just shared a ton of information with you about it. I went into the class totally terrified, thinking that breastfeeding wasn't for me, and I left with loads of information that really helped me feel empowered. I went home, I made a whole board of cheat sheets, of little reminders to help me be successful as I nursed. I wanted to have a board, that way it was easy for me to see while I was nursing, and I felt totally empowered. I was like, I got this, it's going to be a cakewalk, and well, then Q was born and everything changed.